The Insidious Art of Gaslighting. That never happened. You're imagining things. Words that seem innocuous but actually represent one of the most destructive forms of psychological manipulation. These simple phrases are often the first sign you're experiencing gaslighting. A technique so effective it can make you question your own sanity. I spoke with a woman last month who spent 3 years believing she had early-onset dementia because her partner convinced her she was constantly forgetting conversations and events that actually never occurred. She described waking up each morning with a sense of dread, wondering what memories she would lose that day, feeling her identity slowly dissolving as she began to distrust her own mind. When she finally discovered old text messages proving her memories were accurate, her world collapsed. Not because she was wrong, but because she was right all along. Gaslighting is a sophisticated form of manipulation where the perpetrator deliberately makes you question your reality, memory, and perceptions. The term originates from a 1944 film called Gaslight, where a husband manipulates his wife into believing she's going insane by secretly dimming their gas-powered lights while insisting the lighting remains unchanged. This psychological tactic has evolved far beyond its fictional origins, becoming one of the most common yet least recognized forms of emotional abuse in relationships today. What makes gaslighting particularly dangerous is how it systematically dismantles your trust in yourself. Most forms of manipulation target specific behaviors or decisions, but gaslighting attacks the foundation of your psychological autonomy, your ability to perceive reality accurately. When someone consistently contradicts your experiences, memories, and perceptions, you gradually lose confidence in your most basic cognitive functions. This erosion creates dependency on the gaslighter as the arbiter of truth. You begin turning to them to validate what happened, what was said, and what is real, giving them unprecedented control over your psychological landscape. Gaslighters employ specific tactics that follow predictable patterns. Like a magician using misdirection, they first establish blatant lying, confidently stating falsehoods as obvious truths. When you present contradicting evidence, they simply deny it exists or claim it's been manipulated. A clinical psychologist I interviewed described patients whose partners deleted text messages from their phones and then claimed the conversations never happened, creating profound reality confusion. Gaslighters also systematically deny promises or commitments. They'll clearly agree to something, then later insist no such agreement existed. When you express certainty about a conversation, they respond with, "You always misunderstand everything," or, "I never said that, you're twisting my words again." This pattern trains you to doubt your memory and comprehension. Perhaps most insidiously, gaslighters use what you love against you. They target your insecurities, values, and identity as weapons. If you pride yourself on being fair, they'll accuse you of unfairness until you frantically try to prove otherwise. If you worry about being too emotional, they'll label every reaction as overreacting. One victim described how her partner knew she worried about being a good mother, so whenever she disagreed with him, he would say, "This is why you're failing our children." This targeted attack on her core identity proved more devastating than physical abuse she had experienced in previous relationships. The progressive nature of gaslighting makes it effective. It begins with small contradictions that seem insignificant. Perhaps they claim you agreed to meet at 7 when you're certain you said 8. These minor incidents establish a pattern that gradually escalates. By the time the gaslighting becomes obvious to others, you've already lost confidence in your ability to identify it. The psychological impact manifests in predictable symptoms. Chronic confusion becomes your default state. Simple decisions become overwhelming because you no longer trust your judgment. You apologize constantly, even for things objectively not your fault. Most common is the persistent feeling that something is wrong with your perception, thinking, "Maybe I am too sensitive," or "I must be misremembering again." This self-doubt becomes so ingrained that it persists even when presented with clear evidence supporting your original perceptions. Workplace gaslighting exploits professional power dynamics, often targeting women and marginalized groups. When women report sexual harassment, they're told they misinterpreted friendly behavior. When people of color identify racist comments, they hear you're being too sensitive. The phrase, "that's just how things work here," uses organizational culture to normalize problematic behaviors, making targets question their professional judgment rather than recognizing legitimate concerns. The long-term effects mirror PTSD symptoms, with victims experiencing psychological aftereffects years after leaving the relationship. Hypervigilance becomes persistent, constantly scanning for inconsistencies in all relationships. Many develop emotional numbness as protection against the pain of having their perceptions invalidated. Most troubling is the development of intrusive memories, where victims suddenly question whether entire events actually occurred as they remember, even years later. Early warning signs include persistent contradictions between what you experience and what someone tells you you experienced, creating that specific feeling of entering conversations certain about what happened and leaving confused and uncertain. Another indicator is feeling clear-headed with most people, but consistently foggy after interacting with the potential gaslighter. Perhaps the most telling warning sign is the sense that you need to record conversations to prove they happened. When you find yourself saving messages as evidence, your intuition is detecting contradictions between what you know happened and what the other person later claims. Recognizing these signs early allows you to maintain your reality anchor. Document your experiences in a secure location and consult trusted third parties who can confirm your perceptions. The most powerful defense is understanding that disagreement about events doesn't automatically invalidate your perception. Two people can experience the same situation differently without either being wrong. Your perceptions belong to you, and no one has the authority to invalidate your lived experience. Love